Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, everybody. I feel a little shy because I'm not so qualified as the speaker who was supposed to be sitting here. But thank you for tolerating me and still sitting here. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter number 6, and called Dhyan Yoga, and text number 32. Atmopam yena sarvatra samam pasyati yorjana sukham va yadi va dukham sa yogi paramo mataha. Atma, with his self, Opam yena, by comparison, sarvatra, everywhere, samam, equally, pasyati, sees, yaha, he who, Arjuna, O Arjuna, sukham, happiness, va, or, yadi, if, va, od, dukham, distress, saha, such, yogi, a transcendentalist, paramaha, perfect, mataha, is considered. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai Sri Prabhupada. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Please repeat. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Here purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Na chatasman manusyeshu kaschin me priyakritamaha. Bhagavad-Gita 1869. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living beings, and in this way he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who is withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man towards Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayaham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Jayatam Suratopangur Mama Mandamatirgati Mat Sarvasvapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohana. Okay. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prajarane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Atmopam yena sarvatra samam pasyati yorjana sukham va yadiva dukham sa yogi paramo mataha. He is the perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. So this verse is talking about the perfect yogi, the perfect Ashtanga yogi. And this verse comes just before Arjuna asks the question. And so Arjuna is going to ask the question about, I don't think I can be a yogi. And why? Because the perfect yogi sees everyone with compassion and everyone equally. So Burijan Prabhu, in his commentary Surrender Unto Me, he reiterates that we spoke about this equal vision in 5.18. Vidyavinaya sampane brahmane gavihashtani sunichaiva svapakecha pandita samadarshinaha. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, and a dog-eater outcast. So this is the view in chapter 5, with 5.18. We're talking about the Nishkam Karma Yogi. And in today's verse, we're talking about the Ashtanga Yogi. But the perfection of both is the same. He is seeing all living beings equally, and he's feeling compassion to all living beings. Today's verse he's saying is he's seeing the true equality of all living beings, both in their happiness and their distress. So in the next verse, Arjuna asks, this system of yoga, I don't think I can endure it. It's not possible, because the mind is restless and unsteady. So Burijan doesn't say where he gets this comment for. Usually such comments come from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but he's not actually citing it this time. But he's saying, can Arjuna maintain equal vision on the battle of Kurukshetra? One with an equal vision observes me and all beings and sees every being in me, text 29. Sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, text 30. Can Arjuna really see Maharaj Yudhisthira and Duryodhana equally? Arjuna presents his doubts to Krishna, frankly telling him that for such vision it is impossible for him. Could Arjuna, by strength of intelligence, see both his friends and enemies equally and simultaneously carry out his duty of fighting? So this is the commentary of why Arjuna is asking this question. And of course we have to look at this as well, because we know, as Srila Prabhupada is going to explain to us very clearly, that Arjuna is so much more qualified than we are. He comes from a very high noble birth. He's a kshatriya, he's a very noble fighter, and yet he's saying, I can't control my mind. So it gives us a hint that the mind is very difficult, even for the most qualified of persons. So now Srila Prabhupada in his purport is stressing the view of the devotee in comparison. Where did we go to here? One in Krishna consciousness is a perfect yogi because he's aware of everyone's happiness and distress. And because one devotee is aware of the distress in the material world, as Srila Prabhupada says, the cause of distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And that means incarceration in the material world and having to engage in this material life. So the Ashtanga yogi has also seen that position. The Ashtanga yogi has also seen that the material world is only a cause of distress, which is why he has withdrawn from it and gone to the secluded place and sat on his kusha grass and his deer skin, not too high and not too low, and so many other things, because he knows that the material world is a cause of distress. But the bhakti yogi, Srila Prabhupada saying, he may be more perfect because he can see that the material world is a cause of distress, and therefore he wants to alleviate the distress of others. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. So this is the perfection that comes at the end of the 5th chapter. And Prabhupada calls it the peace formula. One who knows this can attain peace. And elsewhere in the Bhagavad-Gita, without peace there cannot be happiness. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying happiness comes from this knowledge that Krishna is the supreme and he's our friend. So because the devotee is happy and he knows that his happiness comes from Krishna consciousness, he therefore tries to distribute Krishna conscious knowledge everywhere. I was thinking about another verse which talks about how the devotees see things, which is in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Narad Muni is talking to Dhruva Maharaj. It is 4:8:34. Gunadikan mudam lipsyed, anukrosham gunadamat, maitrim samadad anvichin, napatapir abhibhuyate. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets a person less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this world. So this is the view of the devotee. This is a view of one who is not envious. So in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada talks about what happens in the material world when all living entities are envious of each other. Generally, if we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious. We try to discredit him, we try to pull him down. If we find someone less qualified, we'll just keep him down. That way he's no competition to us. And if we find someone equal, then we become envious and have to show, well, we might be equal, but I'm a little more higher. So in this way, the material consciousness and the spiritual consciousness are actually completely opposite. The non-envious nature of a person in Krishna consciousness means he wants to distribute Krishna consciousness to others. So in the Nectar of Instruction, there is a similar verse, but it's a little different. I think text 5. Yes, text 5. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So this same distinction is there. For us as devotees, of course. Someone is equal to us, we make friends with them. Someone who is less advanced than us, we at least honor them. But in this purport, Srila Prabhupada expands a little bit more on those who are less advanced than us. Because the general advice is we should try to associate with somebody who is equal to us or higher than us in order to gain association and gain advancement. But then how are we going to give our compassion to others? So Srila Prabhupada makes that distinction, which is equivalent to this ninth offense against the holy name. We should not preach to the faithless. So it really means we should not preach to those who are envious. So Prabhupada makes a distinction in the Kanishta Adhikari, or the one who may chant the holy name. He makes a distinction between the Kanishta who is innocent and wants to learn and wants to advance, and maybe just because of bad association doesn't know what to do and does the wrong things. And he distinguishes that between a Prakriti Sahajya who is interested in... outwardly he looks like he's worshipping Krishna. And outwardly he's very enthusiastic, but he's doing for his own sentimental reasons, for his own sense gratification. Or at the very best, he wants to enjoy with Krishna. He might have some faith in Krishna, but he wants to enjoy with Krishna, and not just simply to please Krishna. The stage of the gopis is that they want to please Krishna. And the result of that, Anandam Buddhivardinam, an ever-increasing ocean of bliss. But their goal is not the ocean of bliss. So Prabhupada makes that distinction in the Nectar of Instruction. How those who are less than us, there are those who are innocent, who we should be preaching to, who we can see they can benefit from us trying to share devotional service with. And for those who are envious, and when we start to preach to them, they will back away, or they will become envious, or they'll try and stop. Vaisheshika Prabhu talks about you preach to the ripe fruit. It's not that we think somebody doesn't have a chance of coming to Krishna consciousness, but if they're not ready to listen, they're like the unripe fruit. The unripe fruit is there, and it will mature into a ripe fruit, but it's not ready yet, so just leave it on the tree. I was listening to his class, and I thought it was nice, even though I'm not very good at book distribution. He gave a very nice class, and he said that this unripe fruit, you can see them, because if you smile and you say hi, they will, shrink and walk past. He says, just let them walk past. They're the unripe fruit who should stay on the bush, and you look for the ripe fruit. He says you can tell them if you just put up your hand and say hi, and they smile, then you know that they're ripe fruit, and you can start to talk to them. So in this way, we're not rejecting anybody. We want everybody to advance in Krishna consciousness. But for some of them who are not ready, the best we can do is they will hear the Maha Mantra as we're chanting on the street. We may be able to give them some prasad, but we may not. Some of them will even reject the prasadam. But in this way, we have compassion for all living entities. There was something else. I'm sorry, I just got notice later this morning and I didn't have much time to prepare. Perhaps the best thing we can do now is some comments from the floor, and there's a microphone there for some comments. The microphone is at the back. Someone can add something. Someone? Thank you, Prabhu.
Mataji, the devotees describe here how one way or another they are praying to everyone and try to engage others in Krishna consciousness that they can become happy.
Yes.
But you see, sometimes I go on book distribution and it is so hard that I become, sometimes bewildered. And, I say, well, I cannot help them, because they don't want to be helped. Sometimes you try to help them and they don't want to listen. Sometimes they treat you bad and so on and so forth. So how can we kind of overcome this?
I can't speak from personal experience, but I like to read what the devotees are writing when they share their experiences. And sometimes it's like a little test from Krishna to test our determination in serving him. And of course, sometimes there are some people who are not ready to listen at all. The devotees tell stories of how they have a day like this when they can't distribute a book anywhere. And then they come to a point where they surrender. And they just say, Srila Prabhupada, I need some help. Nobody wants to hear from me today. And at the point when they surrender, then things can change. Now, I'm not qualified to speak on how to come to that point. And it is very difficult because of the people out in the material world, especially in the Western countries, 99.999% of them are not interested in material life. And the government, as we're hearing in the morning classes, how the government has become so atheistic that it's actually making the problem much worse even. Oh, that wasn't in the morning class here. I was listening to a class in Melbourne. They're doing 4th canto, 16th chapter at the moment with Prithu Maharaj. And it's saying how in a proper Vedic society, the government will chastise the atheists and will not let them thrive. But in this modern society, the government actually supports the atheists. And the speaker was giving an example that there's been a court case in South India and Kerala where there's a temple of Ayyappa. Now Ayyappa is not quite in the shastrically correct, but there's a temple Ayyappa. And their culture is that they don't let women of menstruating age into the temple. And that's their culture. And people have accepted it. But now the atheistic government has come along, and some people have gone to the court, and they have a court order that says women can enter the temple. So it shows how the atheistic government is not actually helping things. They will promote things that are against the Shastras. And even now they're trying to argue in court for the ruling on the basis of science, which is also fabrication. So this atheistic government is not helping our society at all. One purport I was reading, Prabhupada said, and it may be possible in a democratic government that the Krishna conscious people can take over the government, and then everything will be all right for people. So, yeah, some reply to that, Prabhu?
So, Mataji, in relation to dealing with the devotees, like you was mentioning, how if we have a superior, we become envious, and if we have, we try to overrule and so on and so forth. So, how we can learn how to be nice with the devotees,
So, my Guru Maharaj is giving a series of classes now, and he is stressing on the point of humility. And he said, he was saying in the class, this week's class, he was telling how the seed of devotional service comes to us by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. We cultivate that seed by hearing and chanting. And then, of course, in the process of chanting, we have to weed out our offenses and anarthas. And then this bhakti fructifies, not by time, like a seed will fructify by time, but he said this bhakti fructifies by the cultivation of humility. And in a previous class he had said this cultivation of humility is possible because he's reading from 4th canto, 22nd chapter, where Maharaj Prithu greets the Kumaras and gives reception to the Kumaras. So from Srila Prabhupada's purport there, he is telling us that cultivation of humility comes from following all the Shastric injunctions about etiquette. So in this example, Prithu Maharaj greets the Kumaras, he offers them a seat, he pays he pays the obeisances to them. He bathes their feet, and he says in following all these proper etiquettes, like in Prabhupada's time, when devotees would greet each other, they would pay obeisances, especially if they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Now, to some extent, we've kind of let that pass, and thinking in our minds, okay, we know that, and we accept that, and we don't actually do it. So one way to cultivate the practice, Prabhupada also gave that example. I think it was in the early days in New York, it was either Brahmananda or Gagramuni, somebody can tell me which one. One of them went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I don't feel like paying obeisances to you. And Prabhupada said, you pay your obeisances and then you will feel like it. So if we follow the etiquette, then the cultivation of humility will follow. And then humility and enviousness are opposite. If we cultivate humility, then we will not be envious. So this humility, even in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami talks about humility. He uses the word dainya. And dainya actually is equivalent to Krishna Prem. When dainya matures, then Krishna Prem matures. It goes together. He describes how the perfection of the gopis is supreme because they have absolutely no expectation for anything for themselves. He says that the gopas, the small cowherd boys, they will occasionally think, wow, my best friend is Krishna, I'm doing okay. But the gopis never think like that. The gopis simply think, perhaps one day I will be able to serve Krishna. And so this cultivation of humility is everything in the life of a devotee. And that also counters this problem of enviousness.
Thank you very much. Somebody else has a question?
Some other comments from somewhere? Something about treating everyone with compassion.
We want the class to continue, but question has to be.
Yeah. Some reflections on something you found in the class interesting or uninteresting.
Can you elaborate more on the ninth offense?
The ninth offense. one should not preach to those who are not faithful. So essentially, Prabhupada explains it that we're told not to preach to the non-devotees. Even Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita says that. After he says, somewhere we'll find those verses. Prabhupada actually explains it in these verses. 18, around 69. Oh yeah, so 1867. Idam te natapakshaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shrushrushave vachyam na cha mam no basuyate. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor one who is envious of me. So Krishna is telling us we should never preach to anyone who is not a devotee. But Prabhupada, in one of these purports, I think it might be in the following purport, in one of these, because after that Krishna says, for one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. There is no servant in the world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So when in one of these purports, I think, Srila Prabhupada is explaining how Krishna is telling us not to preach to the non-devotees, but the devotees are even more compassionate than Krishna is, because they will try and preach to the non-devotees. So we try and preach to the non-devotees, but when we find someone who's envious, we don't. And the reason for that is because we try to preach to someone who's envious, then they will engage in blasphemy. If we try to preach something they don't want to hear, then they will start to curse Krishna, or they start to curse us. And then they will incur more reactions for that behavior. So we try not to do it. Like even the third offense to the holy name, one should not disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Generally, the spiritual master won't give you an order if he thinks you won't follow it. He will phrase it a little differently. He will give you the option, because he also doesn't want you to disobey the order. He doesn't want you to get more bad reactions. So similarly, if we're preaching to somebody, we don't want them to get negative reaction from our preaching. So if we find them envious or we find them inimical, we should leave them alone. But if we find them a little open, we can try and make friends with them. Or even if they don't want to hear, we can distribute some prasad. But in some cases, we have to leave people alone completely. We have to, be a little sensitive like that. Thank you, Prabhu. Anything else? Comments, questions, realizations? Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
While distribution of books, one should take 3 minutes to teach.
Prabhupada says that.
Only take 3 minutes. Within the 3 minutes, he can quote so many facts from Prabhupada. Suppose if one distribute Bhagavad-Gita, he can quote size of the Atma is 1/10 of 1/10,000 of tip of the head, and some interesting points.
Yes, and that's where you have to be sensitive to who you're speaking to, because certain things will approach some people, and certain things will approach others. Yeah, I listened to one class by Vaisheshika, how to sell Bhagavad-Gita on its own merits. And he goes through his process line by line, how you say, are you interested in yoga? And if they say yes, you say this is the book for you. And if they say no, you say this is the book for you, like that. But then he actually goes through the Bhagavad-Gita as well, and then he takes the pictures in the Bhagavad-Gita. He shows the picture of the from this from birth to death, the samsara. Where are you in this picture? And then they point. So then they're actually engaging in the picture. And then he goes to the picture of the yogi with the light coming out of his head. And he says, what job do you do? And they say, oh, this guy did that before, like that. So to engage some humor, and just to try and open them up and stop them from being negative. Because if you can build some rapport with people, then they're more able to listen and accept something. Something else, Prabhu? Ha, Prabhu. One here, then we can go back there.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
You were telling about preaching with those who are envious.
Ha.
At time you are bound to preach in your family members. If one member is I don't say it's good, but he's progressing, and others may not be following, then I'm sure you're bound to preach to them because you're interested for them to come along with you.
Yeah, you want them to come with you. But actually, the general rule is you shouldn't preach to your own family. Because this material relationship interferes. They have expectations of you because of their relationship with you, especially seniors like parents. And even, so they can't listen to you preaching to them. So you can help them mostly with distribution of prasadam, if they will accept it. And you can bring other devotees in. Because in a way, thinking that we should preach to our own family is also a material relationship. So we want to be compassionate to this individual spirit soul. Let me see if someone else can preach to him. Like in Prabhupada's time, some people took their parents to Srila Prabhupada. I was reading just this morning, there was a remembrance from Urmila Mataji. She took her father to Srila Prabhupada, and father was talking to Prabhupada, but I'm a Jew, I don't think I should come and see you because you are Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, no problem. There are many paths all going to the one God. It's no problem at all. And Urmila is recalling that afterwards her father said, well, I can see why you like this Krishna consciousness movement. This is a genuine holy man. So like this, somebody else can preach to our family where we can't do it. I certainly couldn't. I tried to leave some books in my family's home, but I couldn't do much else. My mother would take some prasadam. My brother would not even take prasadam. But there's also the statement that even a neophyte devotee, 3 generations before and 3 generations after, are liberated. So there was a devotee who asked Prabhupada, so what does it mean our family members are liberated? And Prabhupada said, it means they will become devotees in their next life. So therefore our best, if we can't preach directly to anyone in our family, our best chance is to make sure that we're advancing in Krishna consciousness, and they will get a chance in their next life. None of my family will make it in this life, but they get a chance in next life. As long as I stick on this path and never leave it, they'll get that chance. By Krishna's grace, by Guru's grace, and not by anything that I can do. Thank you, Prabhu. You wanted to ask?
In advance, I want to apologize if I wrote something wrong. A small little experience about Shusha.
Yeah, just speak a little closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Little experience about distribution I want to share.
How?
I don't know whether it's right or wrong. My realization. One need not at all bother whether the other person receives our books or not. Only the one who had been inspired by the Lord will receive, and we need not bother whether they will accept or not.
Yes. Yes, that's good. Yes, that's true. Krishna will inspire those who are ready to take a book. And of course, it's hard not to be attached to our service, and it's hard to be detached and say it doesn't matter if they take or not. We know that. It's hard to accept that on a simply equal platform. But ultimately it's true. Just over this side.
There's one devotee, it's a question, who's new to Krishna consciousness, fairly new, and had a mother who's very inimical, really not interested at all. And I'm just, my question is that he tries to hide. He's not very young, he's in his 30s, so he tries to hide from her when he's chanting, or he'll take his feedback in somewhere else, or he can feel that that she's vibrations coming from her that are not good, so it hinders in his chanting. So my question is should he hide it, or should he just be polite and speak, this is what I'm doing now, or should he be careful that obviously there has to be some balance?
So Srila Prabhupada gave some instructions about speaking to our parents. And he said that we should always treat our parents with respect. Even we should bow down to them, pay obeisances to them. We should listen to their... We should be respectful when they give instruction, but we should not take it. We should not act on it if it's not... if it's against Krishna consciousness, we shouldn't follow their instruction, but nevertheless we shouldn't argue with them. Because that's the relationship between the child and the parent, is that the parent is the senior. And so we can't... it's offensive to contradict the senior, even if the senior is not in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada's... there are some letters there, a couple of letters that we had in this Vaishnava etiquette training, where Prabhupada has said, you always be respectful to their instructions, but don't follow them if they're against Krishna consciousness. So in other words, don't rock the boat if it's unnecessary. In the early days in Krishna consciousness, there were people who, even I did, I said to my mother, I'm going, you know, and but that leaves a bad impression, and that will make it harder for her to come to Krishna conscious later. We can't undo what's done, but the advice now is to try and leave a good impression everywhere, if we can. So yeah, ideally he doesn't want to feel a negative environment. He wants to find somewhere where he's comfortable to chant, and not make it worse by challenging her. It's always awkward when you're in a situation. It's also awkward for people whose spouses are not interested in Krishna consciousness as they become interested. It's also quite a difficult position to be in. But as the main thing is to maintain the association of devotees so that that faith will strengthen, and then ultimately Krishna will take charge. So we should take care of our devotional service. And this you call it a sutra that Vaisheshika says, always leave a good impression, no matter who you deal with, because no matter who it is and how inimical we are, we want to not make it harder for them to come to Krishna's consciousness now or in the future. So if we keep them, if we leave the good impression, then it makes it easier for them to change later.
So just be a nice person.
Yeah, just be a nice person. Your mother is your mother. She's worthy of your respect. But don't take the wrong instruction, but be respectful. Something else from someone? Anyone else wants to discuss anything? Back over this side.
Sorry, I don't want to take it back for myself, you know, I don't want to be the same, but still. When I became a devotee, you know, this is a nice story in relation to the question you asked. That my brother is a Prabhupada disciple, so before he became a Prabhupada disciple, he used to invite me to see Srila Prabhupada in New York, but I was very, covered by Maya. But then he became a devotee, and then he used to come to my house, and he never preached to me. He preached to my friends.
Ah.
And I became attracted to the preaching, and I was asking him, why you don't preach to me? I want to know more. But my false ego, interfered. I don't want to be, asking because I feel very proud. So what he did was this. He used to go to the temple and bring me some prasada. And sometimes he asked me for donation. And in that way, little by little, I become purified. And he never preached to me, And one way or other, and one day he came and then he invited me, to the temple. And I just say, okay, I will go. And from that day on, I don't went back to my house.
Hare Krishna, good. Sounds like your brother was very intelligent.
Now he's in Maya,
Oh, okay.
I have to save him. I don't have the strength.
Bring him some prasadam.
Well, I was coming to India and I invited him to come.
Oh, Mother Parvati wants to hear it in the speaker. Because she's on the radio listening. If he wants to speak, give him the speaker.
So, I have a plan with my good friend here, Kirti Prabhu, and my brother to come together. One way or other, the passport don't came on time for him, and then he had the ticket, the money for the ticket, and I say, okay, you can take it. So I just came by in behalf. So I had to pray the Lord to lead in mercy, because I am here.
Okay, that can be done also. Anyone else want to add anything?
In Prabhupada says, devotional service is a war against Maya.
Yes. Yeah, devotional service is a war against Maya. As Jayadvaita Swami said in the class, I think it was yesterday morning, he gave the morning class. He said that we actually have to want to leave this material world. We actually have to see this material world is no good. And somebody complained, that's why you devotees have a bad name, because you're always trying to keep people away from the material world. But actually, it's true that if we think somehow we can enjoy in this material world, then we're not going to get pure devotional service. We actually have to give this material world up. So that in that way it's a war. We have to, because this material consciousness is with our mind and in our intelligence, our subtle body is there. And we have to transform it into Krishna's service.
In one letter, Prabhupada says, philosophy is highest. Higher than that philosophy is practicing that philosophy.
Good. Thank you, Prabhu. All right. So thank you all very, very much for coming, and thank you for tolerating me. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai.